So, I have a bit of a confession to make. Unlike pretty much every other Flash game I've talked about in this series, I actually didn't play the Henry Stickmin games when I was a kid. In fact, I'd never even heard of them until around when the collection came out in 2020. I know. Shameful. But from what I can gather, this series holds a lot of memories for many people, and they're considered classic Flash games. And after playing them, I can 100% see why. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so what exactly is a this? Well, this topic is very much out of my wheelhouse, and that not only did I not personally grow up with these, but they're also a completely different type of game that I haven't really tackled before. Henry Stickmin is a series of point-and-click, choose-your-own-adventure animated Flash movie games focusing mostly on humor and a ton of video game/internet references and parodies, all told through the greatest art medium of our time, stick figure animation. The series follows the exploits of the titular Henry Stickmin, our mostly silent protagonist and one of the most lovable criminals I know of. Henry is able to pull seemingly any object he wants out of thin air, but things often don't end up working out how you'd expect. Or at all. Each of the series' original 5 Flash games were released on Newgrounds and Stickpage from 2008 to 2015. The games garnered quite a lot of attention over the years, especially on Newgrounds, with each title almost always getting front page shortly after release. About 5 years later, the series saw a massive resurgence in popularity with the release of the Henry Stickmin Collection on Steam in August 2020, a collection of remastered versions of all the games, along with a brand new final installment completing the mission. The original games are actually all still playable on Newgrounds through Ruffle and the Newgrounds player, while also of course being available on Flashpoint. But spoiler alert, the collection versions are pretty much the best way to experience these games, the only way to experience completing the mission, and how I would recommend playing them. Alas, this is Flash game reviews, so we're gonna mainly focus on the original Legacy versions until we don't. Although almost everything I say applies to both versions. The Henry Stickmin series was created by one Puffballs United, and the amount of work he put into this series cannot be overstated. Nearly everything in the series was done just by him. All of the animation, graphics, and story, a lot of the music and voice acting, it's seriously impressive. The series' origins can be traced back to one of Puffball's first Newgrounds submissions, uploaded on December 16th, 2007, a little interactive Flash movie called Crossing the Pit. This features a stick figure attempting to, go figure, cross a pit with 8 different methods to click and choose from, none of which proved to be successful. Crossing the Pit basically acts as a precursor to the Henry Stickmin series, despite not officially being part of it, even down to including the iconic teleporter. It even follows the same title format as the Henry games, verbing the noun. It's definitely a very notable and interesting part of the series' history. So how exactly am I going to structure this? This isn't really the type of series where I can talk about the gameplay with each entry, so I'm gonna cover the general structure and format of the series first, and focus on what makes each game unique when talking about them individually. In general, each game begins by establishing what Henry has to do, usually trying to escape from somewhere, trying to steal something, it's in the title. After a while, you're presented with several choices, generally only one of which is correct and will advance the story, with the rest leading to Henry failing in hilarious fashion. These so-called possibly epic fails are basically the backbone of the entire series. The thing that sets Henry Stickmin apart from other choose-your-own adventures, and video games in general I guess, is that it actively encourages you to lose, and I kinda love that. If you pick the right choice every time, you're missing out on a majority of the game's content. They almost always keep track of and have achievements for finding all the unique fails, and doing so is a blast because the fails are just really funny. In this series, failure isn't a punishment, it's a reward. A little birdie once told me that comedy is all about reversal of expectations, and Henry Stickmin has that down to a T. When playing for the first time, you never know what's gonna happen, which option will prove successful, or which option will lead to Henry dying a very brutal but still PG death, and that's what makes the series so fun. To mix things up, sometimes there are quick time events where you have a time limit to make a choice, and letting the timer run out also leads to a unique failure sequence. After each wrong choice plays out, you get the iconic fail screen, slightly different between each game, but always with a funny little message remarking about what just happened. And you can always instantly go back to the choice screen and try another option. If you end up picking the correct choice, it'll soon lead to a new set of choices with its own set of fails, and so on and so forth until you get to an ending. Sometimes, usually at the beginning of a game, there are multiple correct choices, and they'll each lead to different branching routes for the story, and eventually different endings. Now, one of the main staples of the Henry Stickmin series is its abundance of references to other games and pop culture. You might think that a series that relies this much on references would get old or be cringe, but no, you can tell Puff actually knows a lot about most of the games he references, and that makes a huge difference. It's all very true to the source material, affectionate parodies that are really fun to pick up on. And that's not to say that all the jokes are references, or that the series has none of its own identity. Oh no, it's still got plenty of its own ideas and stories to tell. And that's basically kinda it. You click on choices, you fail, you laugh, you click on other choices, you Stickman's funny good time. Yes. Now, if you've never played these games and that sounds like a fun time to you, heck, even if it kinda doesn't, they're a lot more fun than my very general description of them. I'd recommend stopping the video right now and playing them for yourself, because for the first time in this series, I am issuing a proper spoiler warning right about here. The first time playing one of these games without knowing what's going to happen is just an amazingly fun experience that you can really only get once. And if you, like me for the longest time, haven't played these before, I don't want to rob you of that. So I highly encourage you to check them out before continuing. If you haven't already, of course. It's not even that the story is really important or there are major plot events, at least not until the later games. It's mostly just that the fails and surprises will be much funnier and more enjoyable if you go in without knowing what's gonna happen. Alright, with that said, let's begin our look back with Henry's very first, well, attempted heist, first uploaded to Newgrounds on August 27th, 2008. It's being the first entry in the series, breaking the bank's premise couldn't be simpler. Henry's low on cash, so he's decided to try to break into a bank. Keyword, try. And it's up to you to decide how he goes about doing that. I know I just went over how these games usually have branching pathways with tons of choice screens and multiple endings, but this one has none of that. We have a grand total of 6 choices all on one screen. Breaking the bank isn't that much of a game. The future installments have stuff like QuickTime events and actual choices you can make that lead to different endings. This one is pretty much just a flash cartoon with a scene select. Not that that's a bad thing at all, of course the series had to start somewhere, you know. It's actually a little endearing how simple it is. The animation and visuals are obviously much more primitive and not as good as the later entries. Henry doesn't even have hands or shoes yet, but it's really not too bad for what it is and when it was released. You can see everything that Breaking the Bank has to offer in like 3 minutes. There are 5 options that result in a fail, although without the staple fail screen it just brings up the choices again, and 1, the disguising bag, that leads to the credits. The fails aren't as interesting or funny when compared to the later games, the jokes are kinda predictable. Also, this isn't Henry Stickmin, there are barely any references. I'm pretty sure the only one is the Zelda sound when Henry pulls out the shovel. The very minimal voice acting is kinda bad here, but you just can't help but love it. Every single male character in the entire series is voiced by Puffballs himself, just doing different accents or pitched up in different ways, and you know what? It actually works. Like, all the important characters each sound distinct, but you can still kinda tell it's just him, and I think that's a really funny and unique thing about this series. The voices have gotten way better over the years, but even the early games still have their charm. The correct choice here sees Henry hiding inside a money bag, which at first seems to work, leading to him being thrown into the bank vault. But as soon as Henry stands up, he triggers the alarm. This leads to a fairly somber credit sequence showcasing the aftermath of all the fails, and then Henry getting arrested, leading directly into the next game. There's a reason the collection considers Breaking the Bank a prologue rather than an actual episode in the Henry Stickmin story. If Crossing the Pit was a proof of concept for the Henry series, then Breaking the Bank is a proof of concept. It was a fun little flash movie for its time, but people clearly wanted to see the concept improved and expanded upon. As one Newgrounds commenter's friend's cousin may or may not have said, well, better luck getting out of prison then. Released on April 11th, 2010, Escaping the Prison is where the series truly found its footing. With 18 unique fails, branching pathways with 3 different endings, way more references, random fun little secrets to find, now this is more what I think of when the act of Henry Stickmaning comes up. The story picks up right where the last one left off. Henry's in jail now for attempted robbery of the bank when a mysterious package is delivered to his cell containing a cake that can contain one of 6 items to aid Henry in his escape. Well, 3 of them fail right off the bat, but the other ones lead to 3 different different methods of escape, otherwise known as endings. There's the lame ending, where Henry is somehow proven innocent by a familiar bluffing defense attorney and let free. The sneaky ending, which isn't actually that sneaky as he's noticed by a lot of people but manages to escape unscathed. And the badass ending, where Henry is so badass that the cops are just too scared to stop him, I guess. Escaping the prison offers a ton more variety in its scenarios and fails, which makes sense considering there are like 6 times the amount of choices to make than in Breaking the Bank. The animation has also improved quite a lot since last time. Henry's got his iconic drip, the movement is a lot more fluid, and of course there's just a lot more of it. And the fails are a lot funnier too, not to mention now sporting the classic fail screen. The amount of references has also now been ramped up to adequate Stickman levels. Escaping the prison introduces a series staple, achievements, or medals. They pop up whenever you unlock one, although since there's no main menu in the Flash version, you can only actually look at which ones you have if you're playing on Newgrounds. I'm jumping ahead a bit here, but this series makes some of the best use of an achievement system I've ever seen. They really motivate you to seek out everything each game has to offer by finding all the fails and endings, and even some completely pointless fun little Easter eggs. Escaping the prison has this in the form of donuts that you can click on throughout various scenes, and finding all 5 of them unlocks an achievement. There's even a bagel at one point as a fake out. Going forward, the series would have plenty of these hidden achievements, and although they can be really cryptic and you rarely get any hints to find them, they're totally superfluous anyways, so I don't care. They're fun little extras for all the true funny Stickman gamers. Anyway, there's really not too much to talk about with Escaping the Prison. It's a fun time, and is pretty much the core essence of what a Henry Stickmin game would become, but not much more than that. But even if there's not a lot to make it stand out from the rest of the series today, it was still a huge step up from Breaking the Bank, and it set the groundwork for the rest of the series to follow and build upon. Speaking of... The third game in the series, released on July 8th, 2011, is Stealing the Diamond. Oh boy, I wonder what Henry's gonna do in this one. Well, he's managed to escape from prison, but he's still running short on money. While watching TV, he sees a news report about the opening of the new Tunisian exhibit at the museum, with the spotlight being on the Tunisian diamond, a huge gem worth around $12 million. I'm sure you know where this is going. Henry sets out to the museum to do some burgling, with once again 3 different endings to seek out. The aggressive way, or in the remaster, the much more catchy Intruder on a Scooter, sees Henry bust into the museum with his trusty motorized scooter and attach the diamond using a tow cable, culminating in a police chase on one of only 2 routes in the whole series where every single choice is a QuickTime event. The undetected way, unlike the sneaky ending in the last game, is actually true to its name. Definitely the simplest of the 3, Henry manages to sneak his way through the museum and verb the noun completely undetected. And then there's the epic way, which introduces a recurring organization in the Stickman universe. The Center for Chaos Containment, or CCC. They generally only show up once per game, but can cause quite an impact with their arsenal of unusual weapons that often seem to cause more chaos than whatever they're supposedly trying to contain. Here, in response to Henry causing a ruckus with a mega mushroom, they deploy a giant robot that proceeds to destroy everything in sight, leading to Henry fleeing the museum in dramatic fashion before the diamond just falls right into his lap. Stealing the Diamond may have the same number of endings as Escaping the Prison, but it has way more fails, going from 18 to 40. You might think they had to sacrifice quality for quantity, but nope, these games just keep getting funnier each time. This one ups the amount of references even more, and there's some really fun ones here. I like how you can kind of tell when each of these games were released based on the references they make. I love the little unique animations and sounds that play when you mouse over options now. They add a lot of extra charm and would become a series staple. Medals are back, and there's now a proper main menu where you can view the medals you've earned as well as the credits. I like the UI with the doodles, although Henry actually planning his heist somehow feels out of character. Like the donuts in the last game, there's an achievement for clicking on all the paintings found throughout the museum. Cool idea, fits with the setting, but pretty hard to actually keep track of. There is a medal where you have to fail more times than there are actual unique fails, which feels pretty unnecessary, but it is only 15 extra. Hopefully they don't go too crazy with these in the next 2 games, damn it. I remember when first playing through all these, I think Stealing the Diamond was when the series really clicked for me. I really like it. The premise is super simple, but leads to so many memorable and funny moments. Even though it's the 3rd game, I feel like this is the one that serves as the best introduction to the series. Probably because it's the most self-contained story of the bunch, and is just really fun on its own merits. Next up, the fourth game is where the series really started to get interesting. Released on May 27th, 2013, Infiltrating the Airship. I say that in terms of the story, because this was when they started to have the endings be completely different outcomes for Henry rather than just different methods of achieving the same result. In the last two games, the specifics were a little different, but no matter the ending, Henry always got out of prison and always stole the diamond. This time, they're each very different, but I'll get into the specifics later. They all start at the same point. Henry has been captured by the government, knowing of his escapades, but they offer to clear his name under one condition. This game introduces pretty much the main antagonist for the rest of the series, the infamous Top Hat Clan. They're a band of top hat wearing, mustache twirling, bad thing doing bad guys, and Henry is tasked with taking down their main base of operations, the titular airship, in order to clear his criminal record. The Top Hats are really fun villains. They can be threatening, but have their sillier moments too. Basically a perfect fit for this series. Quite a few recurring characters are introduced here, such as the current leader of the Top Hat Clan, Reginald Copperbottom, and his right-hand man. This game also sees the introduction of the fan-favorite character by far, the maker of the greatest plans, the bold action man himself, Charles, a helicopter pilot for the government. And really, what is there to say that hasn't been said a million times before? He's pretty great. So this probably goes without saying, but I love this game's setting. A giant airship owned by a Top Hat-based criminal organization? That's just inherently awesome, shut up. And there was clearly a lot of thought put into the design of the airship and how the rooms connect to each other. The introduction of the Top Hat Clan and the distinct setting of the airship, along with the aforementioned branching endings, makes this game feel so much more grand and ambitious than anything that came before it. Infiltrating the Airship manages to balance having a more involved story with the classic fails and jokes really well. I'm kinda running out of ways to say, this game is funny at this point, but, you know, like, it is. Though there may be like one too many fails that consist of the airship falling out of the sky. It's definitely funny the first few times, but can get a little repetitive. On to the 4 endings, which have actual names now, very cool. As established before, this game's endings each yield very different results for our funny Stickman man. The best example of this is the path starting with the cannonball option, as at the very end it branches off into 2 completely opposite endings. Henry chases the leader and the right-hand man all the way through the airship, until at the very end Reginald surrenders the ship to Henry, and you can choose whether Henry turns him into the government or betrays them and becomes the new leader of the Top Hat Clan himself instead. I just love that one of the first crimes Henry commits after becoming the leader of a powerful criminal syndicate is downloading pirated music. They even downloaded a car, those monsters. There's also the other 2 endings which have their own separate paths. Government-supported super long title sees Henry team up with Charles for the first time, sneaking through the airship and grabbing some incriminating evidence to get the majority of the Top Hats arrested. And finally, Pure-Blooded Thief starts with Henry infiltrating the airship as instructed, but he gets sidetracked and decides to steal a giant gem again instead. He really can't help himself, can he? This escalates quickly with him crashing the airship and the CCC getting involved, but manages to make off with his treasure amidst the chaos while screwing over both sides. Oh, Henry. Airship doesn't have a collectible per se like the donuts or paintings in the past games, but it does have a sort of scavenger hunt side quest in the form of the Bigoron sword. This is hands down the most cryptic achievement in the entire series. There are a ton of steps across completely different paths and it's not really worth going for, though that was probably part of the reference. There's plenty of other smaller achievements too, which as always can be fun little extras to look for if you feel so inclined. Overall, Infiltrating the Airship is flat out great. These games just keep getting better and better each time, and this was the biggest leap in quality and scope since escaping the prison. The setting and characters in this one are just so much more compelling and unique than anything in the previous entries. Not that the old games are bad, but this one is just that good. It introduced so many iconic elements that are hard to imagine the series without now, like the Top Hat Clan, the airship, and of course Charles. And on top of that, the way endings worked here marked a huge turning point for the series. From now on, it became a bit of a more story-driven series where Henry's morals and fate were, for the first time, truly up to the player's choices. I'd say Infiltrating the Airship was when the series went from good to great, but will it be able to keep it up? Here we are, the last Flash game in the series, released on November 12th, 2015, Fleeing the Complex. This time, Henry is somehow captured by a Canadian highly guarded criminal complex known ominously as The Wall. And now he's gotta find a way to escape. I just realized Infiltrating the Airship and Fleeing the Complex both start with Henry waking up after being captured. One of the paths in completing the mission has this happen too, they even acknowledge it there. Interesting pattern. Anyway, yeah, so right off the bat, hey, isn't this kinda the exact same premise as escaping the prison? Technically, yeah, kinda, but they both go in different directions, and fleeing the complex does a lot more with it, so I think it's fine. Plus, having to escape from somewhere is pretty much the perfect premise for one of these games, since there's several ways you could go about doing that, perfect for the game's multiple endings. Fleeing the complex introduces by far the single best new feature in any of these games, the map. Basically, it's a scene select. You can see how many fails you found at each choice screen, and click on any one to go there instantly. This makes it so much easier to find fails and other secrets that you missed, making going for all the achievements much more enjoyable. I know it sounds like I'm making a huge deal out of such a basic feature, but it's really just that convenient. I can't even imagine playing the older games without it now. Plus, it's just cool to be able to visualize the game's branching paths and what choices lead to where. Speaking of quality of life improvements, this game also adds a timer for QuickTime events. That shows you exactly how much time you have left to make a choice, which is very nice. Moving on, we've got another new main character, Ellie. She's been locked up alongside Henry, and one of the endings sees her and Henry teaming up to escape together. Henry's mostly been on his own for the whole series, so it's cool to finally see some situations, and of course fails, that involve two characters working together. In person, sorry Charles. The Top Hat clan definitely had their goofier moments, which was great, but the Wall is a truly intimidating antagonistic force. It gives this game a bit of a darker tone and setting than the rest of the series, but that certainly doesn't stop it from having a bunch of wacky, silly fails. Some really great and memorable ones here. This game gave us the distraction dance, which I think some people hate because of how it became a kinda annoying meme for a little bit, but in the context of the game, it's really funny and one of my favorite fails. It's not really the dance itself that's the funny part, like the memes focused on. The funny part is how everyone reacts to it and eventually joins in. Some excellent comedic timing there. And as always, the references in this one are on point. I love this part where it just randomly becomes a tactical RPG, complete with homages to Fire Emblem, Advance Wars, Punch-Out, oh, okay, sure. Even Five Nights at Frederick himself makes an appearance. It was 2015. This video is getting pretty long, so I'll just briefly go over what happens in each of the 5 endings. Henry breaks out alongside Ellie, Henry abandons Ellie and sneaks out on his own, Henry is chased down by the Wall forces and presumed dead, Henry calls and is rescued by Charles, and Henry calls the Top Hat clan to pick him up, but then gets betrayed by Reginald and literally fucking dies. Alright, fine, I can go in a little more detail. The presumed dead ending scene is honestly one of my favorite moments in the whole series. The fact that the solution was letting the timer run out was so cool. The reveal that Henry survived with the music and the ending title was just executed perfectly. Gave me chills the first time. Having Henry choose to call either Charles or the Top Hats to help rescue him was a really clever way to incorporate those new characters and elements from the last game into this one. And it emphasizes the whole, oh, whose side is he on? You decide thing that started with Infiltrating the Airship. It's cool seeing locations like the airship show up outside of their spotlight games. Wouldn't be the last time either. The extras and medals and stuff are pretty much in line with the last game. Some fun ones, some really obscure ones that you'll probably need a guide for, but at least the map makes this one a lot easier to 100%. Fleeing the complex is another great entry in the series. It wasn't a big innovation like Infiltrating the Airship, but it kept the formula going from that game and made something really cool with it. Unique setting, very fun fails and references, super useful new map feature, great animation and visuals, interesting characters. Yeah, it's awesome. Not much else I can say, it's just good. Really so. And for a while, that was it for Henry. A little before Fleeing the Complex released, Puffballs and a few others formed a studio called Inner Sloth. And they eventually went on to make a niche, little-known game, oh, I doubt you've heard of it, called Dig to China. What? That isn't what you expected me to say? Okay, fine, they made Among Us. Yup. No need for introduction here, huh? Among Us is a game that I personally never really got into, but I have a ton of respect for. I won't dwell on it for long because I know you're all tired of seeing it everywhere, but the game has a ton of Henry Stickmin references, with the most obvious of course being an entire map based on the airship, which was really cool to see. Honestly, one of my favorite things about Among Us exploding in popularity was that it led to something Henry Stickmin related being shown at the Game Awards, which is not really something many Flash series can say. The story of how Among Us went from from an obscure 2018 local multiplayer-only mobile game to the worldwide sensation it is today is still pretty crazy to me, and I have nothing but respect for the Innersloth team for pulling it off. But even before Among Us launched, Puffballs announced his plans for the future of Henry in early 2017. The sixth and final installment in the series, set to be 3 times bigger than Fleeing the Complex, would be included in a collection alongside remastered versions of all the previous games. And this greatest of plans would eventually come to fruition as... Released on Steam on August 7th, 2020, the Henry Stickmin collection is exactly what it sounds like, and it's pretty much amazing. We've got all 5 Flash games remastered all in one place, plus the final game completing the mission, which is only available here. Breaking the Bank, now considered a prologue, is the only game in the collection that has been completely remade from the ground up, and it looks great! It keeps the same length and spirit as the original, but with way better animation, visuals, audio, you know, everything. Some of the fails have even been completely changed, and for the better. They're quite a bit less predictable, and just, you know, funnier. There are now proper fail screens and messages, the bank looks like an actual building instead of a shoebox, there are some more dynamic camera angles, yeah, it's amazing, and serves as a great sort of first impression for the whole collection. For the rest of the games, the animation remains mostly the same, but the backgrounds, art assets, and audio have been remastered. Although the actual animation is largely unchanged, the updated backgrounds look amazing and really enhance the experience. It's especially noticeable with the interior shots. In the originals, most of them were very gray, but the remasters add a lot more color and variety, and are just way more visually pleasing and diverse. These improvements might not seem so important on paper, but they really go a long way, and all come together to make a much better experience. The Henry Stickmin collection does a great job bringing the older games up to the quality standard of the later games, and making them feel more like a complete connected story. But it's not just the improved presentation, there's a ton of other enhancements on top of that. The map and QTE timer introduced in Fleeing the Complex are now in every game, yes, good, perfect, I love it. I've already gushed about the map plenty, and having it in all the games now is a godsend. Okay, technically Breaking the Bank doesn't have one, but you know. Honestly, the map alone already makes the collection versions the definitive way to experience these games. That's how good it is. The older games where the ending ranks were just called The Blank Way now have proper titles like the rest of the games, Intruder on a Scooter My Beloved. Every game has subtitles now, which you can toggle in the settings. They may not be accurate 100% of the time, and I don't like how there's subtitles for the guy on the other line in the Play Dead fail and Fleeing the Complex. It kind of spoils the punchline, I don't get why that was done, but overall, yeah, nice addition. Though some adjustments had to be made to certain references to avoid copyright issues. Since this is now a game you can buy on Steam with, like, money? Items like the Metroid and Pokeball had their designs and names changed to be legally distinct, and any instances of music or sound effects taken directly from other games have been replaced with sound-alikes. Some of them are kinda noticeable, but there was really no way to get around this, so it's totally fine. It's not like it ruins the jokes or anything, you can still clearly get what's being referenced. If anything, it actually helps to make the games feel more original, which of course is ideal for a full release like this. I'm gonna rapid fire through some specific changes and notable improvements in each game. Escaping the Prison. The animation looks a little outdated, especially coming after the amazing Breaking the Bank remake, but with the updated backgrounds, it still looks good. And I like how the map here is like an actual map of the prison. Stealing the Diamond. The redone lighting and backgrounds are especially noticeable in this one. The exterior design of buildings like the museum and the CCC base looks so much better. The literally one choice in the entire series where you had to use the keyboard for some reason was changed to just using clickable buttons like everything else. Cool. The paintings for the Connoisseur achievement now disappear when you click on them, and they go to a Banjo-Kazooie collectathon style counter, which makes them way easier to keep track of. Especially helpful because there are now a lot more of them. Infiltrating the Airship. Charles doesn't nod anymore in the intro, so 0 out of 10 remake. The interior rooms of the airship look way more colorful, detailed, and distinct now. It makes an already great setting even more pleasant to look at. Also, thanks to the map, it's actually fairly reasonable to get the now renamed Biggle Sword this time. And Fleeing the Complex being the most recent had the least changes, but it still looks a lot better. The main differences are some more realistic lighting and backgrounds being more detailed. Each game has its own set of achievements, both baked into the collection itself and through Steam. Nice. And with the map feature in all games and the removal of the those medals where you just had to get like 100 fails when the game only had like 60 unique ones, they're super fun to go after. This is one of the very few games I've actually bothered to get all the achievements on, and I had a great time doing so. Oh, and how could I forget the big new feature implemented across all games? Bios! It's simple, you right-click a character when they're on screen, and you get their bio, which is a little card with their name and a short description. And there's one for pretty much every character in the collection, even down to the most unimportant random background characters. And of course, there's an achievement for getting all of them in each game. Okay, I'll admit, critically, this is a little dumb. Having to click on every single character, quite a few being blink and you miss it moments to 100% the game, is kinda stupid. If you miss one, it's annoying to have to keep replaying a scene to get it. But personally, I love the bios. It's so fun collecting them all and reading about these random background characters that don't matter at all. It's amazing. It's so satisfying with the little pop sound when you get a new one, and getting all of them in one scene on your first try feels super rewarding. It's almost like you're playing a game on top of watching whatever the hell Henry's doing. I love the little details with the bios, like how each game has a different card design, or how it shows what faction the character is affiliated with, if any. Plus, plenty of the characters' names and descriptions are quite funny, so that helps with wanting to get them all. The bios were a great way to add both more replay value and world building without actually changing the old games at all. I'll admit they're kinda pointless, but hey, they're completely optional and I like to collect all the funny things, so S-tier edition in my book. And I might as well talk about this here since they're all in the same place, the soundtrack. For a while I never really gave much thought to the music in this series, but it's actually quite good. Most scenes don't have music, it's mostly there for the openings, endings, and action scenes, and it all fits the tone of the story and animation very well. And I mean it with action scenes. If you hear music, get ready for some quick time events. And like any good villains, the Top Hats have their own leitmotif that pops up in most of the series soundtrack whenever they're around, which is always fun to pick up on. Anyway, that's basically everything about the Henry Stickmin collection. Oh yeah, except for one teeny tiny little thing. Here we are, the grand finale. I know that a lot of people were excited to finally play this game, and surprisingly, I was one of them. Here's the deal, I first played the Flash versions of the original 5 games way back in January 2021 when I first started using Flashpoint. But I purposefully avoided the collection and everything completing the mission related until I was actually making this video so I could experience it as blind as possible. Obviously, I got spoiled on that one thing everybody wouldn't shut up about, but I saw pretty much nothing else. And man, did it live up to the hype. I won't go over every single ending individually here because you really should just play the game for yourself. This video is getting way too long already. Oh, and also there's 16 of them? Yeah. Completing the mission is huge, boasting an amazing 164 fails and 16 different endings. That's the same amount of endings as the entire rest of the series combined. Oh, and all of them are canon. You know, branching timelines and stuff, you know. The way this game is structured is quite different. Instead of jumping right into the action, you start at the endings hub. Here, you select 2 previous endings, one from infiltrating the airship and one from fleeing the complex, and the game gives you a storyline continuing from both of the selected endings. Obviously, there are some combinations that are incompatible because the endings wouldn't fit together at all, but this still leads to 15 completely distinct timelines to experience. I'll admit, at first I was a tiny bit disappointed at how linear this game is. Part of me wanted to see the map screen somehow branch off into 16 different endings from the same beginning point, but with all the factors from the previous endings at play in these paths, this is literally the only way this could have been handled. Plus, selecting an ending from both of the previous games and seeing how every factor in the story is incorporated and resolved is just a really cool concept and satisfying in its own way. It makes each path feel unique and stand out from one another, since they all have completely different stories to tell. The story of completing the mission varies wildly depending on the path, hence the very general title, but almost all of them involve the Top Hat clan, or what's left of them, and their plan to launch an orbital station into, well, orbit, which will make them super powerful and able to do cool Top Hat criminal stuff whenever they want. And that's no good. Or maybe it is. Remember, Henry is the leader of the Top Hats in some paths. The launch of the Top Hat orbital station acts as this one defining event that exists in every ending.
Except for one.
And that's pretty cool, because throughout all these different timelines, we get to see the impact of one event from a ton of different perspectives. It's a really unique story idea. Some paths take place before the launch, some take place during, and some take place after. And likewise, sometimes Henry's allied with the government, sometimes he's allied with the Top Hats, sometimes he's on his own, sometimes he's teamed up with Ellie, and that changes how he approaches the mission. There's so much variety. It's super impressive how much thought was put into these paths. Basically every important story event from the 2 endings selected is accounted for and addressed in some way. There's a ton of attention to detail and continuity nods that are fun to pick up on. Especially considering that completing the mission wasn't really planned while the Flash versions were coming out, it's crazy how well the continuity of this series fits together. character. Henry being such a blank slate of a character actually works to this game's benefit, as you could totally buy him ending up as a government agent, or a criminal leader, or a professional bounty hunter, or a serial kleptomaniac, or a space resort owner? Sure, why not? Stickman Space Resort was actually the first ending I got in completing the mission, so it's a bit special to me. When the very first ending I saw was Henry stealing an entire fucking rocket and turning it into a space hotel, I knew I was in for a trip. I love how it's basically a huge callback to Intruder on a scooter from Stealing the Diamond, with Henry once again using his scooter and every choice being a QTE. It even brings back letting the timer run out being the answer at one point, like in Fleeing the Complex. The stories are obviously mostly pretty silly, but they have just enough depth to get me invested. The characters are a real highlight of this one. They're pretty much all super likable and fun. Like, this game legitimately got me to care about a bunch of stick figures. That's how good the writing is. Charles is great as always, Ellie is a lot more developed, Reggie is funny, the right-hand man received a huge glow-up, being revived as a cyborg in the paths where Henry defeated him, with one of the coolest designs you can feasibly give to a stick figure, although in the ones where he survives, he's still normal. There are a lot of moments that really make this game feel like a grand finale. Like the last screen of the Pure-Blooded Thief plus Convict Allies path, where all the main factions of the series show up at odds with each other, and Henry and Ellie have to choose who to side with. Hence this being the only path in completing the mission that branches off into two endings. Some nice payoffs for running gags, like Henry using Captain Falcon's moves actually working for once, same with the teleporter succeeding for the only time other than stealing the diamond. The animation in completing the mission is absolutely fantastic. Everything looks really great. Especially considering the sheer scope of this game and how it was all animated by one person, this is extremely impressive. The backgrounds and visuals in general are amazing too. I especially love all the scenes that take place on the train at sunset. And this definitely goes without saying at this point, but this game is, get this, funny. This one had a lot to live up to with the funnies, considering how many classic Family Guy funny moments there were in the first 5 games, but it delivered above and beyond. Since this game is much fresher in my mind, I remember getting a real right old kick out of a lot of these references, like man, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Mario Odyssey, 64, Breath of the Wild, The Sims, that game with the funny skeleton from Smash Bros, it even references itself. There's a part that's basically a complete reimagining of Crossing the Pit, which is such a cool deep cut callback. It has all the same choices, only the teleporter actually works this time. This is such a neat throwback to an important part of the series' history. Speaking of referencing yourself, for the collectibles this time we have 12 plushies of the crewmates from Among Us to find. I love these sort of cross-company cameos, and clearly Innersloth does too, with the aforementioned Henry stuff in Among Us, and vice versa, these plushies aren't even the only Among Us references in completing the mission. If there's one thing I could complain about with this game though, it's that some of the shorter paths, especially the ones with only 3 choice screens, don't feel like they were developed enough. Yep, you all know where this is going. Top at Civil Warfare. That was such a cool, unique concept that I really wish was explored more. It's really interesting to see Ellie actually going against Henry for once, Henry being overthrown by the Top Hats, and it taking place on the airship again. But then after only 3 choices, Henry and his allies get in an escape pod and it just kinda ends. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to have a more ambiguous ending, I just wish more happened. I guess it's inevitable that with 16 endings, not all of them are going to be winners. But don't let that take away from the fact that most of them are. I could probably talk about this game for hours, but I really should just leave it here and let you experience it for yourself. There are so many great details, big and small, that make it so you can just feel how much passion and effort was put into this one game. Puffballs really strive to make every game in the series better than the last, and it all culminated with this. Overall, completing the mission is just plain incredible. So many interesting storylines, so many likable characters, such fantastic animation, so many fails, practically all of which at least got a chuckle out of me, many getting a lot more than that. This is peak Stickman goodness, and such an incredible way to bring the series to a close. The Henry Stickmin collection is the most expensive thing I've reviewed on this show, being $15 on Steam, but honestly, it's worth every penny. The amount of passion and effort that went into this collection is just so amazingly impressive and deserves so much respect. To sum it up, the Henry Stickmin collection is downright fantastic. An amazingly definitive and complete collection of some of the most charming and funny games I've ever experienced. On top of the incredible presentational upgrades, additions like the map, bios, and Steam achievements make it so much fun to 100% and see every last thing this collection, and series as a whole, has to offer. This amount of effort and love put into preserving a Flash game series is just something you don't see very often at all. Puff absolutely absolutely went above and beyond in ensuring that this is the definitive way to experience these games. It was the perfect way to bring all the games together as one incredible, complete package and end the series on a high note. Yeah, it's a little bittersweet that the series is done now, but completing the mission is just the perfect ending, or more accurately endings, and trying to continue from all those would be borderline impossible. It's good that the series didn't go on for too long and possibly lose its magic. And if you really need your fix, there will always still be fan games. So yeah, that's the Henry Stickmin series. Overall, yeah, wow, pretty great. This series' main goal was to make you laugh and surprise you, and it achieved that really, really well. It was really cool to see this series evolve from a wacky Stickman epic fails compilation into still that, but with an actual story and characters with each passing title. Sure, you could argue that, oh, once you know everything that happens in these games, there's no reason to play them ever again, which I mean, yeah, but like, shut up. They may not have the same lasting appeal as other, more replayable games, but that first playthrough leaves such a good impression that it honestly doesn't matter. Yes, at the end of the day, they're just simple interactive stick figure cartoons fueled by slapstick and funny internet references, but Henry Stickmin makes the absolute most of that format and turns it into something really special. So I'm sorry I couldn't give this series the wistful, nostalgic retrospective it probably deserves, but even as someone who didn't grow up with them, these were such a blast to play through, and I really hope I did them justice with this video. And I look forward to whatever Puff and the Innersloth team make next. You know, when the collection first came out, the Henry Stickmin series reached levels of mainstream popularity, and of course memedom, the likes of which I have never seen before or since with a Flash game series. It felt like it was everywhere, so much so that it even got me, who had no idea what a Stickman even was, to finally try them out eventually. But ever since that hype died down, I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about these games outside of their specific fandom for the past like 2 years, which is a shame. Perhaps this can kind of be attributed to the series genre, a choose-your-own-adventure based on comedy with a very set amount of content, and by now everyone's already seen it and moved on. But it got so popular for a reason, and I think it was simply the fact that it was just so good at what it did, and for that, it definitely doesn't deserve to be forgotten.